All right, let's talk about the origin story of something that, let's be honest, most of us use every single day, Microsoft Windows. We're going to go way back to the beginning, back to its ambitious, super delayed, and, well, kind of clunky first draft, Windows 1.0.
So, before we can even talk about Windows, you have to picture what computing was like in the early 1980s. For most people, using a powerful new PC meant staring at this. Just a black screen, a blinking cursor. This was it. The command line. Yeah, it was powerful, but welcoming? Not so much.
So how did you get anything done? Well, you had to learn the computer's language, typing in all these cryptic commands just to open a file or run a program. And this was the huge problem that the whole tech industry was trying to solve. How do you unlock all that power for everybody, not just the experts?
Bill Gates and the team at Microsoft could totally see the writing on the wall. They just knew, the future wasn't about memorizing commands. It was about seeing things, pointing at them, and clicking. The future was all about the graphical user interface, or, the GUI.
And you got to remember, they weren't working in a bubble here. The pressure was on. Apple was already way ahead of the game. They'd already launched the Lisa computer, and the legendary Macintosh was just around the corner. They were making this whole point-and-click thing popular. Microsoft, well, they owned the market with MS-DOS, but they needed a visual front door for all those IBM PCs, and they needed it fast to stay on top.
So, with the clock ticking and the competition breathing down their necks, Microsoft knew it was time. Time to make a huge splash and show the world what they were cooking up.
And on November 10th, 1983, they did just that. At a big event in New York City, they announced their new product, Windows. They promised it would be out the next year. But 1984 came and went. Turns out, building this thing was way harder than they thought. It actually took 2 full years from that big announcement before Windows 1.0 finally shipped to consumers.
Okay, so after all that hype and all that waiting, what did you even get when you finally booted up Windows 1.0 back in 1985? Let's take a quick look.
First off, here's a really important thing to understand. Windows 1.0 wasn't an operating system like we think of it today. Nope, you still had to start your computer in MS-DOS first. Windows was what they called a graphical operating environment. Think of it like a pretty visual shell that you ran on top of the old command line system to make things easier. And one of the first things you'd notice is how it handled Windows. See, unlike Apple's Macintosh, where Windows could overlap each other, Windows 1.0 used a tiled system. All the windows were perfectly arranged side by side. They could never be on top of each other. Why? Well, it was partly to deal with the hardware limits of the time, and, let's be honest, probably to avoid some legal trouble with Apple. And to run this newfangled visual world, you needed some serious horsepower for the era. It required a whopping 256 kilobytes of RAM. I know, that sounds like nothing today, right? But in 1985, for a normal PC, that was a lot of memory, and it wasn't cheap.
So what could you actually do with it? Well, it came with a surprisingly solid bunch of apps right out of the box. You had a file manager, a calendar, a clock, a calculator, and yep, the icons themselves, MS Paint and Notepad, were there from day one.
And of course, because you gotta have some fun, they even threw in a game. It was Reversi, the classic board game. It was actually a clever way to get people comfortable with this brand new thing called a mouse.
So, it was finally out in the world. But was it an instant smash hit? Not exactly. Let's talk about its legacy, because this is where the story of this flawed first attempt gets really interesting.
To be perfectly honest, the reception was kind of lukewarm. A lot of critics and users thought it was slow. It was demanding on the hardware, and there just wasn't much software for it yet. Most people felt it wasn't nearly as smooth or intuitive as what Apple was doing with the Macintosh.
But here's the thing, and this is the absolute key takeaway. Despite all those problems, Windows 1.0 was the first domino. It was the essential first step. Without this clunky, slow version 1.0, you just don't get Windows 3.1, you don't get the game-changing Windows 95, you don't get the legendary Windows XP, and you definitely don't get the systems we all depend on today.
And that's really the story here, isn't it? Innovation is almost never perfect right out of the gate. Windows 1.0 was flawed, it was late, and it wasn't a runaway success. But it was a bold, necessary, and world-changing first step into a graphical future for millions and millions of people. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
That leap from the command line to just pointing and clicking was absolutely massive. So looking ahead from where we are now, what's the next great leap going to be? How will we be talking to our machines in the future? Now that's something to think about.
Thank you all for watching. If you like, please click that subscribe button. And don't forget to comment. See you.